One eye was faintly purplish and swollen, but it looked more like an old injury, and not one suffered in the wreck. As she drew nearer, he saw that the sleeves of her dress had been pushed up, probably because of the heat, exposing rounded forearms. On each of them were several fresh lash marks. She saw him looking and gingerly pushed down the sleeves to cover them. "He did that to you?" Lassiter asked, jerking his head at the dead man. "He did." She stood looking forlorn, eyes on the ground. "Jealousy, I suppose," Lassiter said. "Was that the reason?" That brought her head swinging up. "God knows. Anything but that," she said brokenly. "Then why did he beat you?" He accused me of holding back some of the money I earned." Then she caught herself and said quickly, He was a gambler. I helped him." She looked away, wiping her eyes. Somehow it lacked the ring of truth. She looked to be in her early 20s with dark gray eyes. Finally meeting Lassiter's skeptical gaze caused her shoulders to slump. "Oh, what's the use?" she said with a weary gesture. "You can guess our business. I was his girl." That brought on a spate of tears that streamed across her rather attractive face and dampened the front of the blue dress. Lassiter was going through the dead man's pockets as he asked how the wreck had happened. Finally, she got herself under control enough to explain about her companion who had been in a rage and driven too fast down the grade. She gestured at the high hill where the road curved at her back. "I begged Pete to slow down, and that's when he started using a quirt on me." She shuddered at the memory. "At the foot of the hill, we hit a rut. I was thrown out, but the wagon flipped over on him. Then I heard you coming and hid." In the dead man's pockets he found a few letters, some change, and $9 silver. Getting up, he tried to hand them to her, but she waved away the letters. I don't want them." But she did let him drop the change and the silver dollars into her cupped hands. "How'd you happen to be on this God-forsaken stretch of road?" It certainly wasn't well traveled. Weeds had overgrown the ruts. "Pete thought he was taking a shortcut," she explained, knuckling her eyes. "We got lost. That's when he flew into a rage." "When did he give you the black eye?" "A week ago." She stared down at the dead man. "I should be sorry he's dead, but—" She drew a deep breath and let her words drift away. "Can you take me with you?" "To where?" "Just anywhere." Her reddened eyes met his. She tried for a tremulous smile that didn't fit her quivering, heavily rouged mouth. Lassiter thought it over. There was no telling when anybody would come along this lonely stretch of country. "You'll have to come with us," Lassiter told her. Then explained that he was half owner of a herd of cattle on the move from New Mexico to this far corner of Arizona. But then the clack of cattle hooves could be heard, the grunt and bellow of the leaders, the shouts of riders urging them up the steep grade of the valley. Pinyons dotted the rim of Red Rock. A banner of dust floated down the long valley to mark the passage of the 1,000 head of beef. "Please, don't tell the men about me," she implored. "With Pete dead, I want to make a fresh start." His generous mouth smiled. "Sure, I'll keep quiet. You do likewise. I don't want the men fighting over you. What's your name, by the way?" "Ruthie." "All right, Ruthie. I'll see that you get to Wayfield. That's the nearest settlement." By then, Lassiter's partner, Oni Devlin, was charging up grade through the chaparral on a horse large enough to support his weight. "What we got here?" he demanded as he saw Ruthie, the dead man, and the wrecked wagon. "She was traveling with her husband when the team ran away," Lassiter said blandly. Eddie Pine came riding up on a sweated buckskin in time to hear Lassiter's explanation of what had happened. Not far out of his teens, Pine packed a load of youthful arrogance on lean shoulders. A patch of pale hair was sweat-plastered to his forehead. Wild blue eyes and a long and usually sullen face brightened when he saw Ruthie standing beside the wagon. Then he glanced at the dead man lying in the road. "You claim he's her husband, Lassiter?" Pine said with a laugh. "Don't see no wedding ring on her finger." "She said she had to sell it to buy food," Lassiter said quickly, and noted the grateful look Ruthie gave him. The herd lumbered on past them, driven by the four-man crew. At last came the swaying wagon, gray-bearded Tom Hefter handling the reins. The old man drew up and looked quizzically at Ruthie. Tears had streaked through powder on her cheeks. "She'll sleep in the wagon," Lassiter said after explaining that she was going with them. "Everybody stays clear of her." His gaze snapped to Devlin's nephew. "Understood, Eddie?" Eddie Pine only mumbled something, but his uncle said, "I agree to that." Lassiter got a shovel from the wagon and started to dig a grave. He was glad the matter had been settled so easily. It had been a long, hard pull out of New Mexico, the crew's only pleasure being the one drink Devlin allowed them before supper each evening. They had endured one stampede which set them back several days, and almost suffered a second one. And all this time, the crew had been womanless. Having Ruthie around for the last portion of the trip couldn't help but add to the tension. That evening, Ruthie, wearing a bandana over her glossy hair to keep off the dust, helped Tom Hefter with the cooking. The old man was glad to have such a purty assistant. Lassiter and Devlin and the latter's nephew, Eddie Pine, were sprawled on the ground eating. When they finished, they'd relieve the others who would come in for supper. Ruthie was moving about with a coffee pot for refills. When Eddie Pine reached out to touch her ankle, he was instantly aware of Lassiter's dark gaze. Pine flushed and removed his hand. Ruthie continued her rounds, wearing a faint smile. Pine said angrily, "Don't do no harm to touch a gal, does it?" "In this case it does," Lassiter said. "Uncle Oney, you figure to let him run things?" Pine demanded of his uncle. "He's my partner," Devlin reminded his nephew. "We both run things." Before riding out, Lassiter spoke quietly to Hefter. "Take care of her, Tom," nodding in Ruthie's direction. Not that she probably needed taking care of now that she had recovered from her shock. She seemed self-sufficient, a quality which Lassiter admired. In addition to that, she was cheerful and insisted on doing her share of the work. After he and Devlin had relieved the four hands, Lassiter looked over the shadowed herd, bathed in starlight and the faint glow of a sickle moon. This bunch of cattle represented his latest gamble, a chance at long last to lead a reasonably normal life and put down roots. Women had been telling him that for so long that he had finally decided to give it a try. The opportunity came when his old friend, Oney Devlin, expressed an urge to quit New Mexico and move on to a ranch he'd bought earlier in the year in northern Arizona. But Devlin, in his negotiations, soon got in over his head. He urged Lassiter to come in with him. "A chance for the two of us to start new lives in new territory," was how Devlin eagerly explained it. What it came down to was the fact that Devlin had cattle and a ranch of sorts, but lacked the cash to relocate. He happened to catch Lassiter with a full money sack. Lassiter was generous. He was technically a drifter because he never seemed able to stay in one place long enough to take a deep breath, as Devlin would say. Women were intrigued by him. Men found him likable, a good companion, and staunch friend. Those who listened to his enemies were inclined to believe the worst. There were